It's the season of love, so isn't it kind of the season of pink? Hi, I'm Olivia. This is AV Club, and I've recently read a couple of pink horror that I would love to talk about with you. If you're not familiar with the term pink horror, it's a term that, as far as I can tell, was coined by Wendy Dalrymple, a horror author that I've actually read from before. But pink horror is a subset, a subgenre of horror books, horror film that revolves around women's issues, especially as it relates to misogyny in culture. As long as the horror genre has existed, women have been writing it. But this is a term that has newly come to describe something that you knew instinctually was feminine coded horror, pink horror, but just didn't have a word for yet. Something like Jennifer's Body, something like, honestly, even Carrie. Just stories that are specifically about the female experience. And wouldn't you know it that I don't know if it's a response to the term pink horror being used, but a lot of the graphics for these things are also pink, including both of the books that I'm reviewing today, How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates by Shailee Thompson, as well as Dollface by Lindy Ryan. And interestingly enough, whenever I was trying to find a quote to figure out who actually came up with this term pink horror, it was an article by Lindy Ryan that was describing it and had some recommendations for books that you might like. Things like Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey or Bunny by Mona Awad. I'll leave a link to that article in the description. But first up, How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates by Shailee Thompson. This is such a fun read and something that should have been done theoretically, thematically, conceptually a long time ago, because it is tying together two genres that seem opposite but really are so closely related. It is a blend of a rom-com and a slasher. And our main character in this, Jamie Prescott, yes, there are a lot of references. Almost every character in this, I believe, maybe every character in this is a reference to some horror movie or horror actor. I believe Jamie Prescott is a blend of Jamie Lee Curtis and Sydney Prescott. Like that is the theme here. There's a Lori, there's a Stu, there is a Wes. Like it's also directors too, I guess. But there are just so many. I think his name is Wes Carpenter. Like it's a blend between Wes Craven and John Carpenter. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this for the horror film lover, but it really is like such a slasher film. Our main character, Jamie Prescott, is like a PhD candidate with her thesis being about rom-coms and slashers, that she is an aficionado of both genres and all of their tropes. On Valentine's Day, her best friend, like, oh my gosh, she is so close with her best friend. That was my favorite relationship of the book. Should it have been the real relationship of the book? It's really beside the point. But she is so close with her best friend, who also loves movies but loves very like straight-laced documentaries, is a very factual person. Her best friend drags her along to a speed dating event at a refurbished club that they used to go to during their wild party days that was like a maze. Jamie has very low expectations. She's been brought along to these events before, and she's really just looking forward to the street food that she can get with her best friend after the event is over. But it really sets the stage for this event. It's so wonderfully decorated and the ambiance is there. It's so immersive of how cutesy this event is, like very Valentine's Day romantic. Mid speed dating, the lights go out. The date she's currently talking to has their throat cut, and the carnage just goes from there. And so it really is mostly a slasher book because it is all of the tropes of the slasher film about not splitting up, about not having sex, about all of the things like don't say I'll be right back. Other than her best friend, she really doesn't trust anyone there. Some of the women are nice, some of the women are catty. There's two different men that she's kind of interested in from the speed dating that have different personalities. And so she's also having trouble there. Like, I liked these two guys, but could one of them be the killer? And which one should I pick? And I really was just looking forward to street food. This club is a great environment for setting up this story. It would make an incredible film, honestly, because of like how richly decorated the scenes are. Maybe one of the if not the best slasher that I have read. Like the ability to make a film slasher translated to a book, because that's really what this is trying to make a movie as a book, and it does that so well. Because frequently I think slasher books forget that there are romantic relationships in slasher movies and there are funny moments, that it is kind of more like a rom-com or a comedy than like a straight horror a slasher frequently is. And I felt like it held my attention a little bit more, and I didn't know exactly where I was going, because the people that I normally would have guessed, because it's a slasher and a horror, you also know that it's trying to stick to rom-com tropes and it wants to have a happily ever after. And so you're like, how are they going to have a happily ever after if this person is behind it all? And the push and pull of the skepticism and not knowing who to trust. But also, yeah, it's just like a great horror book. I feel like there's so many girlies that would love this book. I mean, boys too, anyone could like it. But I just feel like there is such an overlap sometimes between like romance readers and horror readers, that have been lacking for something like this that is fun, rather than like the dark romances, like the really edgy, twisted stuff. Like, this is just fun. It's like, I don't know. It's exactly what I wanted. Was everything perfect? Maybe not. Like some of the reveals for the characters made me less empathetic to them, made me care about them a little bit less. And like I said, yeah, I loved her and her best friend's relationship, and would have been very happy if it was about them instead of heterosexual relationships. And I felt like the book did a little bit too much to be like, gosh, I wish we were gay and it could just be us dating. And it's like, girl, you can just do it. Like, just be gay. So it was a little bit too like no homo for me, but fun, something that I think should have been done a long time ago, but so fun. Hope they do make it into a movie. And also, even though this book is set in New York City and has an all-American cast, it is also an Australian author, and we love supporting Australian horror authors, all Australian authors. But yeah, definitely a goal of mine to read more Australian horror. And also interesting is that I'm not really a reader of books that usually get like the sprayed edge treatment, but it was kind of fun. Like I got to watch the disco ball progress as I was reading, and I kind of got it. It's never really appealed to me before, but I feel like this was perfectly emblematic of the book, like the true mixing of the Valentine's Day vibes with the slasher. But it definitely does touch on pink horror concepts, like a little bit of like stalking or gendered violence. Or without spoiling anything, you find out like a third of the way through that the killer is doing this to get the attention and affections of the main character. And so it relates to things like love bombing, or just the absurd expectations put on women or that are projected onto women, certain expectations that men be loved because they are obsessed. And like it does touch on all those things, but doesn't really like belabor them in the text so much as just like understanding the motivations. But yeah, I think it fits in the pink horror genre well. And then Dollface I got as an arc from Netgalley, so thank you to Netgalley and the publisher for that. This was also a very feminine coded story. Dollface follows a female main character whose life is uprooted every couple of years because her husband has to move for work. And so she is moved to nearly New York City, but moved to like the suburbs of New Jersey with her husband, who's frequently away, and their young son. And right when they get there in the suburbs, it's almost like a Stepford Wives kind of vibe, that their next door neighbor is like there and knows too much information about them already, and knows what kind of dog they have and what their son likes to do. It was just like a lot. And then immediately wrangles her into this like toxic PTA group of these like upper middle class women that are like obsessed with being in the PTA. So it's a little bit of that like spooky, catty, not cultish group of like PTA women, but adjacent to it. But pretty quickly into the story, people start dropping like flies, that you start to get chapters that are from the doll's point of view, where a woman with a doll face is point of view killing these people around town, and people that our female main character has just met. So she's just moved to this town and then suddenly bad things are happening. She's also still unraveling this childhood trauma, watching her mom kill herself right in front of her and her sister. Her sister is now on the road in an RV. She's the influencer, like a beauty influencer, and so she's always just like calling into her sister with some new makeup going on. And so frequently the story, while it's a slasher, is a lot about our main character just being like, I'm just trying to take care of my family, and now you're making me show up for the PTA while people are dying everywhere. I don't see my husband enough, I don't get to spend enough time with my kid, and on top of that she's a horror author, and so she's also just like trying to find inspiration for her next book. These two books went together so well, reading them closely back to back, because they are both loaded with horror references. So if you're someone who likes seeing references in books, then yeah, both of these will be good for you, because she loves horror. She's talking about horror references all the time. I'm really not a person that loves like overly referential stuff, but in both of these cases, it didn't bother me at all. I think because How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates was so campy, and this one, because it was a horror author, it's like, just give her a little slack. Like, of course, she wants to talk about it. But in either way, it didn't make me cringe like it sometimes does whenever stuff wants to reference other things in culture, like it's trying to borrow some of the prestige from other stuff. I didn't get that vibe in either of these books. This one for me ended up feeling a little bit repetitive, or like there needed to be like some other element, because it really just kept switching back between these POV chapters and doing one more event with the PTA, then back to the POV slasher chapter. So you're feeling like it's probably one of these people in the PTA, or the neighbor that has like left the neighborhood recently and there's animosity there. Like there's only so many people that it could be, but I felt like it could have benefited from like one more thing going on, or some more characterization of the other characters, because there's only a few characters that you really knew enough about to suspect, or for it to feel rewarding for it to be. There's a couple of layers of twist at the end, but I felt like maybe the middle third could have had something else going on, because I did feel like the pacing wasn't quite there for me, that I was like really enjoying the beginning and I enjoyed well the end, but the middle part took me the longest to get through. Definitely not bad, but I just wish that it was like a perfect book that I'd be like, you have to read this. But I do think that if you like a slasher, that it is better than most of the slashers that I've read. And I liked the creepy doll mask element. I love a good mask. I didn't mention, but in this one, there's a really good slasher mask that he is heart eyes, and he has like eye cutouts on his mask. And there is a movie called Hard Eyes, which has, the same kind of mask. And I liked this so much more than Hard Eyes, that I thought it was so much more effective of doing the romance and the comedy. Hard Eyes, the movie, didn't really work for me, but I loved the mask. So in Dollface, I didn't feel like all of the reveals were overly telegraphed. Some were, but really what I want whenever I read or watch a slasher isn't being super gagged by who it is at the end. Like, it needs to be enjoyable along the way. In both of these cases, I do feel like they were enjoyable along the way and had different kinds of kills that kept it interesting. And I do feel like Dollface fits inside the pink horror genre as well, talking about women's relationships with other female family members, that you get the mother-daughter relationship, you get the sister-sister relationship talked about, you get the relationships between the PTA and the expectation of women to be showing up to do free labor for their kids in a way that there's like not the dads doing it. And I think you also get a little bit from the author's perspective, that everyone's like, well, you don't really have a job. Like, you don't have to go to work. Are you even writing a book right now? So you have free time. All your time is free time. So just come do the PTA. You can feel the frustration there as well. And I I enjoyed those parts of it. Maybe that's something I would have liked a little bit more of her actual working on a book or more of her thought process in writing a book, because it felt more like a cosmetic description of her rather than something that really impacted her life. But I do think there's some surprising things at the end, and I was entertained. I was very highly entertained by both of these, and I think that although they have pink horror elements, that neither of them are trying to be preachy about them. It's just something that informs the characters and something that informs the conflict in both of the stories. But I'm curious, what are your favorite pink horror films or books? Anything that you think I should read? Is this something that you would like to hear more about? Because I do feel like I've read a good amount of things that could fall under this category. And I forgot to mention Dollface comes out this week, I think the 24th in the US. So if you're interested in it, it'll be available for purchase basically now. But until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.